I'm going to open up the November 3rd work session for the Board of Commissioners, and we have although we have the agenda before us that is contemplated for November, is there any, well, there's no changes right now. We'll go, if you'll turn your attention to G under new business, the cold water volunteer fire department purchase of a new 2008 Pierce Velocity Chase pumper.
And we have Deputy Blackwelder here to address that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm the Assistant Chief of Coldwater Volunteer Fire Department. Just to give you a brief summary, the Coldwater Fire Department's wishing to purchase a new 2008 Pierce Velocity pumper. It's to replace an aging 91 pumper. Total cost of the units exceeds $415,000. And the requested action I'm taking is for the Board Chief Elected Executive Officer's approval pursuant to Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code, where we can borrow the money for same.
And there's any questions for Mr. Blackwelder? The financing is done by the Coldwater Fire Department.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, and you just need our authority to...
Yes, sir, and we've scheduled a public hearing on the matter for the district November the 10th at 7:30 at the fire department. And that's also pursuant to the Code of the Revenue section and the paperwork for the lending institution.
Good.
Can we put that on the consent agenda?
If you'd like, that's a motion.
I'd like to make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
The next matter, G2, is the Tourism Authority Budget Amendment, which is on page 210. Mr. Crawford, Mrs. Wagster, Mr. Mills.
Mr. Chairman, we'd like to ask if we may change the order of the material we're presenting. I think it would validate if we presented the financials first to share with you where we're going, and the other two items would fall in line.
And that is the presentation of the quarterly report?
Yes, sir?
Okay. Is there any objection by any of the board members? So we'll handle, as I understand it, we'll handle items 2, 3, and 4, which is the budget amendment, tourism stimulus package, and then the presentation of the quarterly report as you see fit. If you'll just tell us when you go to the next one, that way we can
That'll be fine.
understand where we are.
Thank you.
So we will be starting on page 216 concerning the as it relates to the presentation of the quarterly report. Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, basically we are obviously here to present our first quarter financial reports as an independent nonprofit organization. So we are here today to show you the performance of the Bureau over the last 3 months. And inside your package you will actually see a set of financials as well as a balance sheet from the Bureau. And one of the things that I did want to note that might not have printed out correctly in your packets is the lineup of the columns. We actually present our financials as current month actual and then current month budget with the difference, and then you'll see year-to-date actual and year-to-date budget.
You may wait 1 second. We do not have any financials in the package.
It'd be page 212, Mr. Chairman.
Let's see. Okay, that's on page 212. Got it.
Right.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay, we're going to be looking primarily at the year-to-date columns, which is the first 3 months, the first quarter of our financials. The first thing we wanted to obviously mention is our occupancy taxes that were collected, $389,545 versus a budget of $433,098, which is roughly about a 10% decrease in occupancy tax. Did want to note that we were able to offset some of that occupancy tax by being able to get out and do some additional co-op advertising and collect some revenues that way. So we were able to offset it to where year-to-date total revenues, we were 32,070 below in total revenues at this point. The section with expenditures, salary and wage expense, roughly after the first 3 months at the end of September, we were sitting at $175,738 versus a budget of $207,733, which is roughly 15% below expenditures for salary and wage expense. There are a couple items there, primarily the state retirement and the NC 401K. We have not had any expense in the first 3 months due to the fact that we had to get with the Attorney General's office to get our organization's programs up and running, which did start October 1st. Therefore, going forward, those expenses will incur, and we will be making payments from the first 3 months. So those expenses will come back to us. Under the administration and operations, on the next page, you can see year-to-date cost was $81,421 versus a budget of $54,575. The primary reason for that budget line item is for our administrative cost relative to incorporating our nonprofit organization and achieving our independent nonprofit status. If you look at the marketing activities, you will see at this point we've spent $355,617 versus a budget of $410,352. So we were actually 13% under in our market activities year to date. We do have some programs that are coming that we are working through right now. One of the things I want to mention is that we are under a cash basis system and not an accrual basis system. So there might be an expense that is planned that we are working through. However, at this point, we have not been invoiced and have not paid any bills. Therefore, you might see a line item where we're under in a particular expense. That doesn't mean that those items haven't been programmed. It's just they haven't been completed and we haven't been invoiced for those. Certain items as far as our Dale Trail programs, new signage for hotels that we're working on, some brochure purchases, as well as some e-marketing and web technology are some items that we're working on. Total expenditures first 3 quarters is $612,000 versus a budget of $672,000. So again, we are $59,884 underneath our budget at this point for year-to-date expenditures, and that leaves us with a revenues over expenditures of a loss of $210 versus a loss of $238. So we're $27,814 more at this point to retained earnings in the first quarter over budget. The other page that we have is our balance sheet, which lists, of course, what our cash on hand is and relative to our performance. At the end of September, we have $398,867.10 on hand. And at the bottom, there is a comment that fund balance still remains with the county is $244,767.91. Again, those are two separate numbers. The $398,867.10 is what resides with the Bureau. The $244,767.91 is what resides with the county.
And that's page 2, what is that, John? 215, 26?
Page 215.
215, okay,
Before you go on, is there any questions from the board? John, if you go back to page 212, at the very beginning of your financials, what I have is, I have multiple columns. The first column just says current month, next column current month, next column current month, and then 3 year-to-dates and an annual.
Correct. That first column should be current month actual.
Okay.
The second column should be current month budget. Your third column should be the difference between those two columns. Your next column is year-to-date actual, so that's your performance for the first 3 months actual. The next column year-to-date should be your budget. And then the next column is year-to-date, the difference, again, the difference between the 2 year-to-dates. And then an annual budget, and this is the very last column.
Okay. In regards to your financials, is the tourism industry cyclical or within a year, within a 12-month period? And I'm talking about from July to June. Are there what periods are up and down, or is it?
Cycles? Go ahead, so we can
Okay.
address that. So.
Our weakest month in occupancy and average daily rate would be December and January, in that order. The third lowest would be, used to be September until the dragway was built. Now it would be February. June and July are then fourth and fifth position.
Okay.
In terms of weakest months.
Okay.
Our best month being May, our second best month being October.
With the, in years past, not knowing what the history of, financial history of the CVB, is this first quarter typical of years past?
No, this is the first time that we've seen an actual decline in occupancy and average daily rate, particularly in the month of August. And we were down 8 points in the month of August.
What does that mean? What does 8 points mean?
Over a 5-year period, that was the first time that we actually went down in the month of August, and year over year, it went down 8%.
Occupancy,
Occupancy.
rooms rented, so 8% less.
The average daily rate was 0.03% positive, just a very small positive effect. But that's a national trend right now where average daily rate is holding, occupancy has dropped. To give you a comparison, in Charlotte, they had an 18% drop in occupancy. The state experienced, a 9%.
Okay.
That could be due to banking.
Now, how does tourism and the cycles throughout the 12-month period, does that coincide very much with the hotel industry that's usually about 12 months lagging what's going on in the current market? Let me ask you this. The things that are booked today
Right.
were booked many months ago.
In some cases, yes. Like in the group activity, yes, that would be the case. And that would range anywhere from 90 days to possibly a year in our case, if using us as a benchmark. But there's a tremendous amount of it's very short term, probably at least 50% of any occupancy that we're dealing with here today is probably within less than, in some cases, 2 weeks.
So
So the
you-
downfall's been on the short-term side.
Okay, so
Yeah.
when you're talking about short-term, it's, if I call up and say I want to go to the hotel, the short-term you're considering is 2 weeks away. Is that period of time is what's dropped
Yes,
off?
2 weeks or less, actually, yeah.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Minot?
No, ma'am. Actually, it's July, August, September. So basically, you have 2 months' worth of revenue there because July went back to June. October, actually, we did close those financials, got the information last week. We were actually $28,000 down to budget. We were forecasting to be down about $18,000, and we actually ended up down about $28,000 to budget. That is correct. I just call it out at the bottom of the balance sheet, that 244. That 398 is resides with the Bureau.
Any other questions? Thank you. Is that it for the quarterly report? Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
What's next?
Mr. Chairman, I'm on, I guess. And that kind of leads me into what I'd like to bring up before the commissioners. I had the pleasure of being before you on the actual board meeting a couple months ago. And I made a statement then that we've got a very tough road coming up in 2009. I'm sorry to say that road's gotten a little more bumpy as time goes on. Obviously, the things that have transpired over the last less than 60 days have caused some of that here locally, but on a nationwide basis, we'll try to put it in perspective. On a nationwide basis, I just received the latest Smith Travel Research data, which is sort of the consulting arm of our industry nationwide. They're predicting in 2009 that demand is going to drop nationwide a minimum of 1.5 to up to 2.5%, with supply growing at 2.4%. kind of put that in perspective here in our little microcosm of the world as far as our hotel industry is concerned in Cabarrus County, and this is just at exit 49, by the way, assuming that trend in demand were to stay constant with us at 1.5% down, we are going to experience an 80% increase in supply. And, you know, that is unprecedented. And not only is going nationwide is the first time in 8 years, actually, since 2001, and coming out of that, we had an imbalance of supply-demand. And our business really bases itself on supply-demand. And that is out of balance. We've got a major imbalance coming up in Cabarrus County. And for that reason, I'd like to refer, if I may, and have John's input on this too, to page, what is that, John? I've got like 211, I think, and it's the back, right on, it's basically the page prior to the current financials. John, I'm going to let you explain, if you would, please, what this looks like, and I'll kind of put it in perspective of what I'm going to ask.
Essentially, what you have there is a 2008-2009 occupancy tax report. At the point that we had prepared this, again, this is current. So if you're looking at July, that's actually July hotel stays. Imagine July, where we pay taxes are collected the month after. Imagine it being paid in the month that they occurred. So you can see with July, the difference down 11,000, August down 32,000. You see the difference there, and September was down 18,007. We actually ended up down $28,000 there. And then we forecast out exactly what you see that we're anticipating being below budget with our collections and occupancy tax compared to budget over the next several months, with the average rate of about anywhere between $25,000 and $35,000 down for the next 5 months in anticipation of what Terry was talking about.
Yeah. And the reason why it levels out at budget, which is March through, in this case, June, is John and DeSales have factored in what would be the impact of the additional rooms, that roughly around 800 rooms that will be coming online between that period of time. And they're staggered months when they're going to come online, when these hotels are going to open up, and I could name them if you wish. But so we're anticipating that the revenues, even though those hotels will be in ramp-up mode, meaning who knows what their occupancy will be any given month when they open up. It takes 90 days probably to see any impact whatsoever, but we would anticipate that that new hotel inventory would then kick the shortfall, basically. In other words, we don't anticipate a shortfall for that very reason for those last few months. But with that being said, and you know, even looking at now in this case, because September was forecasted here, and John said it was actually $10,000 more deficit than what was forecasted. And you look at October through, in this case, February, that's real. That is really what's going to be occurring in Cabarrus County on the tax, what we anticipate as tax negative. So the piece that really doesn't show up here, and then what I'm going to ask you, the board, to do here in a minute, really has nothing to do with this, but 2009 is the bigger challenge. And I think we are really going to have to really look at the last half of the budget that is, in this case, January through June. Hopefully, what we're saying is that we're going to hold true for March through June. And I would say there today and say I think that's probably not going to be true, just based on what I see going forward and what our experience is. But therefore, I request from the board a budget amendment of $145,000, and this would be to shore up anticipated shortfalls, which we presented before you, for these upcoming months of lack of occupancy tax collection. And this will enable the Bureau to implement all current plans and future plans, and to continue to drive room nights to Cabarrus County and to create tourism in our county.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions right now? Commissioner Privet.
Chairman, Chair, this here, it says, so you can implement the program's plan for fiscal 2029. What are those programs?
I'll let DeSales carry that.
Before you get to that, what page are you talking from, or speaking about, Commissioner?
210. Where it's got a brief summary.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so
How we do our budget each year, Mr. Privet, as we determine what occupancy levels we would like to drive in the county, and then we apply the budget dollars to programming. Programming would be contained in the research area, public relations, advertising, marketing, partner relationships, sponsorships, bid fees for sporting events. And they're all budgeted within our budget in a very detailed backup to the larger numbers that you're seeing right now. So, for instance, for every roll-up number that you see, there is depth behind it and dollars assigned to various programs in those categories.
So it's not any new programs, it's just to continue what you've been doing.
Exactly. Those programs that we anticipated doing back in February and March of this past year to support the tourism dollars, we did the programming at that time. There are no new additions to that programming.
Are there any other questions at this time? Commissioner Minus?
So you're saying that because the occupancy was less, you are short what you budgeted for these programs that are listed here? That's why you need the funds for these programs.
That's exactly right.
And the funds that we are holding came from the occupancy tax.
Any other questions? Commissioner Peru?
Yeah, just one quick one. I guess looking behind the numbers, on the difference, I'm just curious, and, you got 2 months where it was down, it was actually down July and August, and then starting in September, it's a projection. What was used to develop the forecast of the shortfalls? Was it something from the national or tourism folks, or?
The shortfalls through July, August, September.
Yeah, the projected
September
shortfalls,
18,
so
which was
the next
projected.
2
Oh,
months.
yes.
Yeah.
We used a formula based
Okay,
on
that's
what
what-
we had seen in July and August.
Okay, so those 2 months were not.
Right,
gonna
we
give you
had
a trend then.
reforecasted, and we did not reforecast down far enough, obviously.
Okay.
We're anticipating more occupancy than we had.
Okay.
Now, in October, I noticed that you have, a shortfall of 35,000?
28,000.
That's correct.
What's that due to? Didn't we have the big race in October?
We did.
Yeah, basically, and that is,
saying
and that is
Is that saying attendance was down at the race, or what?
compared to budget. And when we budget October, you can see across the top line, where September was 225, October's 285. So we do take that into anticipation. And even with that, we will collect more than we do in typical months, but again, will be less than what we have budgeted.
The effect of the race was nil, actually. Our hotel rooms did fill, and the occupancy and the average daily rate did hold through the October races, so we weren't as impacted. The track was in terms of ticket sales, but our hotels did fill over that timeline. The difference was the group meetings market and less attendance in the associations. In other words, if we anticipate 250 attendees coming to an association meeting, that number began to wane. So the groups became smaller, or corporate travel was cut. And so that's where we were affected in non-race times for the month of October.
Yeah, the reason I raised the question, all the reports I saw, that all the motels were full during
They
that
were
period
full,
of time.
absolutely.
So why?
And they held their rate.
So why did we have a shortfall?
The other 3 weeks of the month, we did not anticipate the depth at which the cuts came for corporate travel. The Business Travel Association put out a report that we took into consideration. There's 3 different associations that monitor and track corporate travel, and we anticipated that we would also track the same way. However, that did not come to fruition. I think Terry's property would also tell you, and we haven't really talked about this, that there has been a decline in the group market in terms of the amount of attendees at each meeting.
Yeah, in October, let me address that. In October, that really occurred. To DeSelle's point, the race is basically 3 days. The October race anyway, and the May race obviously is different, but the October race is 3 days. So that left, the other 28 days of other activity and other business. And we were off in both categories. We were off in the group activity per year ago, prior year. And we're also off in the transient, what we call the other side of that, which is the transient activity, prior year. And, you know, we did not see that when we budgeted for the current budget year that we're in. And that just follows through with the CVB as well. So when the budgets are done, we didn't anticipate that.
How much was attendance off the race?
I can't comment on that. I don't know.
I hadn't seen any figures on it, that's the reason why I wondered.
We have, some months ago, we transferred monies over to go into a contingency fund. What is the plans for the contingency fund? And with the, you know, with shortfalls going forward, if there's shortfalls?
There's a couple factors to take into consideration with the contingency fund and the 17% reserve policy that we fully intend to meet because we have agreed to that. The way the budget is been submitted this year, in the month of June of 2009, we will only have 1 month's revenue, not 2 months as we previously had in the accrual basis. So therefore, there will be quite a shortcoming in June, so we have to prepare for that as well. And the other factors, John, did you want to comment on the other factors concerning our contingency fund?
Yeah, essentially, the 398, 867 that you see before you is, of course, what we have as part of our reserve contingency right now, that obviously would be utilized if shortfalls were, you know, to occur throughout the next several months. Then it obviously, for operating purposes, it would come from that pool of money at this point.
Let me ask you one thing to clear up the 1 month versus 2 months. When y'all transfer it over to, for all intents and purposes, your own entity, I understand that you had 2 months in June, and then you're going to have 1 month. At some point in time, whether it's this year or at some point in time, you're going to get 12 months of revenue. So my question is that 12 months going to be this fiscal year from July of 2008 until June of 2009, you're going to have 12 months? Or in this first fiscal year, do you have 11 months? And then the next year of 2009, 2010 is when you have your first complete 12-month cycle?
That's correct.
This,
That
was a
11
two-part
months this
question.
year. 11 months
You
this
have
year.
11 months this year, and you will have 12 months, 09, 10.
010.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have both.
So we are 1 month short. Also, $59,884 in programming that was not accounted for in the first 2 months of this year, first 3 months, is still on the docket to be implemented.
Okay. And one for a point of clarification, with the numbers that y'all have of 244, 767, 91, if we did, you're requesting 145 on this, and I'm assuming you're going to request 100 on a budget amendment on the next one. That comes to more money than we have. So do you want to do the 144, 767, 91?
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
okay. I want to make sure.
At the time that we did this, we had to estimate what
That's
the
fine.
audit would be
Okay.
at the end
I
of
just
the
want to
year.
make certain.
You're close.
Are there any other questions? For a point of clarification or understanding, I don't believe that we need to vote to place the quarterly report under new business or the consent agenda for November the 17th. You certainly can bring it up, but it's not a report that we need to have other than what we've done today, unless you would like to do it. But I don't see putting it on the consent agenda or new business.
Okay.
I mean, you can, I'm not saying you
That's
don't
fine.
discuss it on the 17th, but it doesn't have to be a separate presentation. But we do have the issue of the budget amendment for the Tourism Authority shortfalls in the occupancy tax revenues. And I would entertain a motion to place this on the consent agenda or new business in the amount of $144,767.91. That would be $144,767.91.
I move we place this on the consent agenda. Chair.
We have a motion, we have a second to place this on the consent agenda. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Now, the next is G3, which is the stimulus package of $100,000.
Okay, I'd like to address that. We felt as though we needed for our community and for the taxpayers of Cabarrus County, so you do not have any shortfalls in your budget and have to make adjustments, that we needed a super attractor to the area. We had several meetings internally about which markets can we attract to Cabarrus County, those that had the ability to travel, who didn't have fear of losing their jobs, and who had the ability to travel at various times that were at the need periods that we needed them. We knew it wasn't the association market, we knew it wasn't the corporate travel market, and we were extremely limited in our choices. So we came up with a complete plan to target the military, because they do have job security, they do have income, and they do have a natural affiliation to NASCAR and its activities, plus shopping is generic. As we did the research within several markets, it became very clear to us that the military market had the most potential for us, because we're a very technically oriented convention and visitors bureau. That is the main thrust of our marketing. And we found that the military families were very close in contact and used the internet much more frequently than any other target market. They also had more bloggers per percentage of their population group, and that they visited the internet 3 to 4 times per day. They also had the entree into their group, if you will, through various resources as the USO, postings, blogging, and so on. We felt as though it was a market that we could immediately generate business to Cabarrus County to shore up the shortfall. So therefore, we engaged the services of a marketing, and we have not paid for that yet, obviously, but we asked for a proposal to see what they could do in terms of e-marketing to help us in our quest to target the military. We have visited several bases. We have made connections with all the bases in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia. And we feel we have a very finite market and a program that would attract them here. Long story short, I put together a full military marketing plan to shore up business during the next 90 to 120 days. This is the first time that we've taken this plan public because we feel as though it will give us an edge up among our competitors in the marketplace. And second to that, we have enlisted the help of all of our partners within Cabarrus County, including Lowe's Motor Speedway, including the Hot Rod Association, and we'll be taking NASCAR to them. We're also, as of today, looking to contract with buses to go to each of the bases and to pick people up for an overnight package to come to Cabarrus County and do their Christmas shopping here. And we have discounts to all the major attractions, and we feel as though we're ready to go. All we need to do is have the dollars to do this. On the very last page of the military marketing plan, you will see a tentative budget. We have an e-marketing campaign. We have fam trips for bloggers and for those in position to sell travel within the military bases, collateral materials, advertising, 3 major events on military bases, which may include Santa coming in a NASCAR, and giveaways, and selling packages, full throttle fun packages immediately with couponing available and taking reservations on site. So it's a very aggressive, very well thought out plan, and we would like to have the opportunity to implement that immediately. We've done the research. We started with our hotels to research their capabilities, their rate structure, and we sent them surveys, and we feel as though it's the perfect fit for us at this time. This is not a market that we would have normally targeted, but given the fallout in the other markets, it is our very best solution right now to keep the economy and those businesses in Cabarrus County going that depend on tourism. So this is our way of keeping our tourism tax and the retail tax collections flowing throughout the county, and so that we will not feel the full impact of the scenario that's before us.
How much discount military get at hotels?
Well, that's an interesting thing. It's $70 for a military rate in Cabarrus County. It's $98 in Mecklenburg County. We would like to talk to the legislature. I know, we're right next door, we're in the same market, basically. And we would
Better
like to
come to
talk to the
Cabarrus.
legislature in the next session to have that increase to the $98. Our packages will be offline on their, they have an ITT system, it's called, for their travel and tourism, for the ones that are either retired military personnel, contractors on base. There's several tiers and several layers of income levels. It's just not the enlisted soldiers and so on. And we feel as though each hotel will offer its own package. Each hotel will have it on their own brands, on their own brand's internet site, and also we'll have it on our Cabarrus site, and it'll also be on the military site. So we have 3 chances at this. But
You mean the legislature has passed the law setting the military rate?
they do, it has to be, I think the state negotiates with the military
Oh.
to set the rates.
It comes through
So
the
we would
GSA.
have to submit an increase, a request for increase, and we intend to do that this year.
What is it in Rowan County?
Rowan is, I think it's $62. I believe it's 62. I know Charlotte and I know ours, but I do believe the ones beyond us, Stanley was lower, and also
How about
Rowan.
Gaston?
I don't know about
Yeah.
Gaston.
Yeah, the way it works is over a period of time, it's kind of like handicap in golf. You have to play so many rounds. Well, you've got to have so many years of recorded history of rate. And our rate has been so low in Cabarrus County because of, just the limited service type hotels. Those rates are getting ready to change based on the new inventory that's coming in. You're going to see those rates go up. And that's when we would definitely want to petition to say, we're not a $70 market anymore. We're maybe the $98 to $100 market, which in all intents and purposes, we will be, by the way, so. And that'll give us an opportunity to get that rate back up.
Well, no, also not for tourism travel, but in Charlotte downtown, Holiday Inn is actually the hotel for the Charlotte MEP station where all
Correct.
recruits report before they go into the military. They stay in there at least one night at that hotel. And I don't know how much what their occupancy rate is, or what their military rate applies to that, and that's how much they get
And generally,
reimbursed.
that's
Now,
a
it's out of
separate,
different pocket now than travel and tourism dollars, but.
generally, those MEPS contracts are separate with the GSA. but,
With the new inventory coming in, we feel this program also has some legs to it, that it will have the ability to transition into a longer-term strategic plan, and that we may incorporate the military as part of our normal marketing. But this is a very intense program. It's meant to shock and awe, and to get people really thinking about, making that trip. We're going to make it really easy for them if we have your support in this.
Well, they do I know there's 2 types. I mean, it's like here, this is where somebody would come on their own, or I know that there's some, on basis they have tours where they actually go and pay the local tourism office for the trip. And then there's a bus that leaves, and everybody gets on the bus and rides to where they're going and then stays and, participates and do whatever, and they leave and come back. Is that what we're looking at? Both
We
of
have
those
2
are-
opportunities there. One is exactly as you said. They do have the tours where you can go buy the tour. We will also hopefully get a regular scheduled opportunity to pick up shoppers and those that want to see Lowe's Motor Speedway. They'll be able to get on the bus, they have to spend the night, and then you come back. You'll have a voucher. It'll be a voucher program. But we want to let the base know that we're coming, we'll pick you up, we'll take you there, and then we'll have a bus route, once they hit the hotels, that'll go to Lowe's Motor Speedway and to the mall every half hour, every 45 minutes or so. So that's what we're hoping for.
Commissioner Juba?
DeSales, you're asking for a $100,000 budget amendment to to get this stimulus package off the ground. And I read here where it says sustain occupancy for the next 90 to 120 days, and then to develop a long-term plan for sustainability within the military market. If all goes well and this flies, do you have any kind of a projected income for this package as a result of this package?
Right. This package should give us about a $4 to $5 million boost in tourism spending in the, or in actual hotel revenue during the next 90 days.
That was my next question.
Yes.
Within the next 90 days?
Correct.
4 million.
That's right. 4 to 5 million, yeah. Now, the good part is that when you get them to spend the night in the hotel, they have to go out and shop and dine and do all these other activities. So it has a multiplier effect. The idea is to get them here and hopefully do some Christmas shopping.
Any other questions? We have a motion to place this on the consent agenda for November the 17th.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We're down to G5, the Commerce Department public hearing on the 2007-2008 home program activities. Mrs. Sifford.
Good afternoon. We are required as part of the home program to report at the end of the year accomplishments for that year. So we completed 3 homes last year. 1 was underway on June 30th, and we had received bids on 2 other projects, and we're finalizing contracts on June 30th. We had expended $71,355.50 on June 30th on rehabilitation and administrative expenses, and expect to complete spending 2007-2008 money within the next 90 days.
Any questions for Mrs. Sifford?
Make a motion, put it on new business.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the consent agreement extension for the Hawthorne subdivision. Mrs. Morris.
Good afternoon. This is a request for an extension for the Hawthorne subdivision. This is a subdivision in Harrisburg. If you remember, this subdivision was in between the old voluntary mitigation payment and the new mitigation payment, and they did volunteer to pay the $6,000 pending the new payment coming on. They are asking for an extension. That extension would be going, first they have to get the preliminary plat extension approved, which will be going to Harrisburg Town Council on November 21st. And then they will also have to get an extension on their consent agreement. So they're asking for you all to consider the extension on the consent agreement pending them hopefully getting an extension from Harrisburg on the 21st. And they have stayed with the original building schedule. And as you can see, when the original subdivision was done, they were over capacity, and some of those schools are still over capacity, and they are still willing to pay the $6,000.
Make a motion, put it under new business.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
We have any discussion or any questions? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is the Grand Apartment Project. Mrs. Morris.
This is also a consent agreement, so it's under the old ordinance. It's an apartment complex that was approved by Kannapolis on February 7th of 2007. You'll see that their voluntary mitigation payment would be $1,331 per unit, and they are asking that that be due at building permitting. And they also are asking for 240 building permits to be issued in 2008.
Make a motion, put it under new business.
We have a second? We have a motion, we have a second. before we get into the vote, Mrs. Morris, would you update us on the 17th or prior to the 17th about the supplemental schools or the additional schools in this area? Because I believe the Northwest Cabarrus Middle, we just talked about a Northwest school, middle school over on Weddington, and I don't know if that will have any effect on this or not.
I believe that Mr. Klutz has included all of the schools.
If you could check with him on that. And also, and then the addition, good, thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Next is the Central Area Plan implementation phase update. If I can say it correctly, Mrs. Morris.
This is just to update you on what has happened since the board approved the Central Area Plan. If you'll remember, on June 29th, the city and the county had entered into the interlocal agreement. Then on August 18th, the land use plan was approved. Following that, we did send to the Planning and Zoning Commission the rezoning, the mass rezoning case. That was heard on September 18th. They held a public hearing at that time. Well, they will be hearing the case, or discussing the case again, on November 20th. And should render a decision at that meeting. Once that happens, just to let you all know what the next steps would be, we do have the expedited voting process. So if the vote is a 75% vote, either way, then that's a final decision with the Planning and Zoning Board, and it would have to be appealed for it to move on for you all to hear it. Otherwise, the Planning and Zoning decision would be a final decision. There is also an option, just so that you all are aware of this and know that there is an option where if the Planning and Zoning Board gets an item, and if they don't act on that item after 30 days, it can automatically move on to the Board of Commissioners. We are expecting that they will, take some sort of action on the 20th. So essentially, this was just to provide you with an update of what has happened and where we are in the process.
The public has had an opportunity to see and comment on and discuss the land use plan as we have in our agenda book today.
That's correct. When we went through the land use plan process, that is the plan that was presented.
Okay, and it has not changed since going to the P&Z board, except for the Kannapolis area that we were talking about some months ago.
That's correct, and that change took place between the Planning and Zoning Board getting it and then the Board of Commissioners actually approving it in August.
Okay. And leading up to this, there were several meetings out at the Arena and Event Center for public comments and discussion.
That's correct. There were several meetings there, as well as several meetings held here in the Rotunda.
And then at each of the P&Z meetings, and I think you've just mentioned 1 or 2 meetings for the P&Z board?
Yes, they were given updates, though, throughout the entire process of where the plan was, where the consultants were in the process, and the feedback that we were receiving from the citizens.
Okay. And this is just a report that you're coming back to us. There's no action for us to take at this time.
There is no particular action,
Okay.
just to make you aware of kind of where we are in the process.
But if the P&Z board does not, if they do nothing on the 20th, then we can take it up for discussion and implementation or not in December?
The board would be able to invoke that general statute that says that you could move it along to the Board of Commissioners because it is past the 30 days. And then we would have, you all would hold the public hearing if that's what you would like to do.
Okay. And Mr. Cook, you've seen that statute and you agree with that, or I guess you've been approached and discussed that before?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
That's a correct rendition of what the statute says.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just one quick one, Mr. Chairman. I know that there were some, and we haven't had a ton of meetings, and there's been people who've discussed this and it's been talked about, but I know there were some folks that were concerned about particular specific plats that were being downzoned. or zoning was changing on that. Have those people been contacted? Have we been able to address or answer any of those questions that those folks may have had?
Staff has talked to some of those citizens, and those citizens also, there were several folks that showed up at the meeting and expressed concerns specific to parcels to the Planning and Zoning Board at that meeting on the 18th, September 18th. So they are aware of those concerns.
Commissioner Privet, you had a question?
Yeah, I want to be sure, if the Planning and Zoning Board is going to meet on the 20th, if they take no action on the 20th, then it will come to the commissioners without them taking any action?
It could, yes,
It could,
yes,
Not
based on the
automatically.
statute.
but not
If-
automatic.
If
Very
you
good.
wish it to, and that's the point of bringing this up, is just to make sure everyone is aware of what the process has been. Since the Planning Commission has tabled the matter for 60 days, then I thought it important for all of you to know that, and also to know that while we don't necessarily expect it to be tabled again, it could be. And if it is, then I would think that the board might want to consider taking action on it, invoking the statutory provision and taking action on this matter. So, in fact, one of the things you could do is, if you wish, you could tentatively place this on the December agenda if the planning board doesn't take action. The only reason I say this is because of the notification requirements that we have now, and they take a bit longer to put out, because it's not, we don't just do the 10-day in advance advertisement, but we also send direct mail to all those people who are affected, and that takes a little bit longer for us to get out. So whatever month you would decide on doing it, it really probably would be the next month before you could actually hold the public hearing. So if you want to move this along, you could always have the option of placing this on the December agenda if the Planning Commission does not take action on it.
What's the pleasure of the board? If we place it on the December agenda, I don't know that date off the top of my head. The 15th?
Yep.
You can always pull it.
We can always pull it.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that the letter state that the P&Z board is hearing it on the 20th and may take action. If they don't, then it will be on the 20th. I don't want there to be a confusion and people show up at our meeting in December thinking, and the P&Z board has already made a decision. So I think it needs to be spelled out very clearly that the Planning and Zoning Board has it before them on the 20th, and should that a decision not be made, then it rolls over into us in December. That is if we do this.
I'm just curious at that point, well, you cancel it, is you send another mailer to them
Yes,
saying
we would
that
have to.
action has been taken, so therefore we're canceling the December
Yes, we would have
Yeah.
to do that because
public
of
hearing meeting.
our ordinance now says that we have to send the individual notifications, so that's not part of the state statutes, that's in our ordinance, so it would only be fair if it did not move on to send another mailing out to say that, it was canceled, or that the decision had been made by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Well, and that's why we wouldn't send out any notices for a public hearing at the Board of Commissioners meeting unless the Planning Commission failed to act at its meeting on the 20th.
If we have to give 30 days notice, is it 30 days or how many?
It's no less than 10, no more
Okay.
than 25.
Okay,
So
well,
that
I
would
was
be-
thinking 30 days.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it would have to go out pretty
After.
much immediately after the Planning and Zoning meeting to meet those requirements.
I'll make a motion that we put it on the December agenda.
That would be contingent upon the Planning Commission
Whether they
failing to take action.
Right.
Mr.
exactly.
Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this particular
Okay.
vote.
We have a motion from Commissioner Minot to recuse
second
herself.
that.
We have a second.
Second.
Well, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed. Now, we have a motion by Commissioner Juba to place this on the December work session, the agenda session, which is contemplated to be the 15th.
I was thinking it would be actually on the regular meeting because we would actually have
That's what I meant, or whatever.
What date did you say, Commissioner Kurth?
Well, I said the 15th, but I know our organizational
Okay.
meeting's the 1st, and then I don't want our
But-
work session scheduled
Right, and this would need to be on the.
22nd, or whatever the regular scheduled meeting is.
Meeting is.
Yeah.
It is the 15th?
Yes.
Okay. December the 15th. We have a motion, we have a second on that motion.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Question,
Yes, sir.
be sure, wonder if the Planning and Zoning Board on the 20th of November has further questions concerning this, and they postpone their action. We gonna take it up anyway?
We can move forward with doing that. We have the option on December the 15th that whatever their questions are, to not move forward with it if that's what we choose to do.
They've had it before them for quite a while, have they not?
They've had it since September. If-
Yeah.
Well, I think that's something, I know we've got I guess, a work session coming up. We have agenda work session in December? I guess we do. That at the agenda work session, we would know by that time whether or not Mr. Chairman, we could make a final decision on whether or not we're going to take it up, even if they do table it. So, because yeah, they could have another question, that comes up.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to say the planning and zoning, listen, we're gonna take this up whether y'all take it up or not, To me, that's just
We got to make sure that message doesn't get out.
bypassing their authority.
Well, that's not, I don't think that's what we're saying. What we're saying is that do they have any questions so far? Or is it just they want to discuss it a little bit further?
I think they have been having some discussions amongst themselves.
Okay. Well, if we place it on the 15th tentatively and see what happens on the 20th, that may answer the question that we have.
Well,
Mr.
I'd say
Chairman.
wait till we have our agenda meeting in December, and we make that decision then.
Okay.
But one thing too, though, is, because the December meeting also, if they come in on the 20th and they vote it, approve it or disapprove it by less than 75% majority, then they will be, probably would be appealing it in December anyway, whichever party would.
If it doesn't
imagine.
get the 75% vote,
Mhm.
then it would automatically get moved on to the Board of Commissioners
Yep.
for consideration.
Mhm.
If it gets the 75% vote, the expedited vote, then somebody would have to appeal it in order for you all to have a de novo hearing. Either way, it's a de novo hearing with the Board of Commissioners. So the advertising and noticing and everything, all of that applies because it's a brand-new hearing.
And we don't have the time to get it out. Because we have to notify, everybody has to be notified by the 10th day before.
Right, it would just, as I said before, because of the mailing requirements, it would be the next month. If you didn't
Mhm.
decide until your agenda meeting in a month, then you wouldn't be able to hear it until the following month.
Right. And I remember one time before, when we had a massive, I guess, some changes in some area plans or area growth and growth strategies. And I remember very well that was delayed for over a year from the time it was first considered. So,
We have a motion, we have a second to place this on the December 15th meeting as new business pending the decision of the Planning and Zoning Board. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-1. Next is the Crescent Heights Retirement Apartment Project. Mrs. Morris.
I'll
And Mr.
actually
Cook.
let
Do we have an
Mr. Cook
agreement,
take
or do we have
care
an
of this one.
understanding?
Yes, this is the community that is a retirement-type community for senior citizens proposed, and they're looking for an exemption essentially from the Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance voluntary mitigation payment. I've actually drafted a document to send to Crescent Heights. I think we will have that in final form by the time of your regular November meeting, so if it could be put on the agenda. I guess technically it's an old business item, but however you want to place it. But I think it'll be ready then for consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we place this under old business on our agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second to place this item under old business. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next is G10 EMS Ambulance Piggyback Purchase and Budget Amendment. Mrs. Barnhart.
Thank you. On behalf of David Hampton, the EMS Director, and the EMS Department, I was hoping to make a request to award the purchase of 3 ambulances via the piggyback statute. The purchase price per unit is going to be $102,000 each. We had originally budgeted for 2 new ambulances and 1 remount, with some insurance funds that were received at the end of 2008 for a wrecked ambulance, along with a small budget amendment. We'd like to request to purchase 3 new ambulances, the other new one in place of the remount. That would bring us to a total purchase cost of $306,000.
Any questions for Mrs. Barnhart? This is actually under what we budgeted. This is below our budget.
Yes.
Okay.
I move we place this under the consent agenda.
Second motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Finance, Mrs. Dubois. And Mr. Downs.
Let Mr. Downs start the process.
Best place for that. Is that good right there?
Let me go where Mike is.
We're going to talk about the item that's listed in your budget in our capital improvements plan was the Southeastern Park property. And we've discussed it with the board just for the benefit of the public and the viewing and audience. It's about 190 acres and it's property owned by Rob and Donna Wallace in Midland. Highway 601, to give you some reference, Highway 601 South is coming down here, and Wallace Road is the corner property. The piece of the property is outlined in green, if you can see it or not. But it's this large tract here, a smaller 6-acre tract up here, 1-acre tract, another large tract, and it runs along Highway 601 as well. We've been working on this for about 2 years now. That we've identified it in the capital improvements budget, and now after about a year of trying several different locations without any success, we approached Mr. Wallace about his property, and he was at the original request or meeting, they were still in the process of marketing it as an industrial site, and when that fell through, he was interested in selling to the county for the purpose of a park. And that's where we are now. We've had the board members out on the site to view the property. Several of our staff members, including Ms. Strong, who can talk to you a little bit about her visions of what the park would actually look like. And then also Mr. Billifer, our General Services Director, has been on the site as well from a utility and a layout standpoint. So with that in mind, we brought it to the board with the discussion of how would we purchase this. We have in the budget over several years cash that we would have been able to purchase the property. What we came up with and what the board has agreed with is an installment purchase, or in our underwriting attorney, bond attorney has called it something different, and you'll see that once we start talking about the contract. But what it is an equal payment, an equal annual payment for 30 years, and at the end of the year, or at the end of the 30-year term, we will be owners of the property. What does this allow us to do? The cash that we have on hand, with spreading out the purchase of the property over 30 years, we have the cash on hand to go ahead and develop the park. And that way we can get the park online and open and available to the public as quickly as possible. With that, I'll answer any questions that the board may have, or if not, I'll pass it on to Ms. Strong here, who can add some of her visions as to what the property could actually look like in the end.
Mike, where's the proximity of the Corning plant?
Corning plant is about another, the entrance into the plant is about another quarter of a mile south. Mm-hmm. The building here on this, actually it's probably about a half mile to the south, yeah. Yes, sir. This is the railroad tracks coming right through here.
Oh, yeah.
Mrs. Strong?
Let me flip over to this. You have to kind of keep that in mind. When you look at this, you can see what we're talking about is this piece of property right here. And as you can tell from looking at it, there's a quarry.
right here, by the entrance coming in. And what we just envisioned is this just being a nice, peaceful entrance coming in, nothing really up here other than maybe a few picnic sites, something very small, kiosks for what's going on, things like that, and you come in. You've got, excuse me, you've got all of this, what used to be pasture land here where there could be athletic fields, disc golf, walking trails around the edge, and here where it's wooded, you're gonna have mountain bike trails in this area and maybe some camping and cabins in this area. Further down the line, as you look, you could have beautiful setting for an amphitheater here, and it's very wooded around the whole perimeter, all the way down to this entrance area. So that's just a few of the things that we had looked at, because it does offer itself to passive and active recreation, and the Midland area is very delinquent in both. So I think Mr. Privet is the only one that didn't get to go see it, and you all have seen, it's a beautiful piece of property, and that's just what those are just thoughts for right now.
Any questions for Ms. Strong?
Currently, is there any specified area in the county where they can have trail bikes or that type of sport?
Not county owned or operated, no.
Okay.
Are you talking motorized or bicycle, like mountain bikes?
Well, either.
There is a mountain bike trail that's privately owned. You pay a fee to use it in the county.
Just one.
And
there's
there's
one.
also, Harrisburg has one built by Trailblazers, I think is the name of it.
Right. They have voiced an interest in this park as well, as to creating a second one as well.
I would just say from what I've heard from people, parents, they really would like to see a place in the county where their children can go and ride their trail bikes, whether they're motorized or not. Much needed.
It is gorgeous property, and I think we'd be making a big mistake if we don't take the opportunity, and I think the process for purchasing it over 30 years is excellent. I think everything's good about this project. I do want to know a little bit more as soon as you know, and you may not know right now, what you plan to do, what the estimated budget would be, how much money we have to develop this, because I think we're going to need to be taking a look at things that perhaps we can move forward a year or two and not burden the county with immediately. So I would hope that you wouldn't expect to do everything you want at one time. Just do the essentials and
Right, and we
move
would have a
on.
steering committee set up with plans, with architect, with plans as to what we would have, and have a budget and get that approved before we ever move forward. And there's opportunity for state and federal grants.
Londa, I don't think Commissioner Mine has been on the board since we planned a park, but
Okay.
it's a very public process where we hire a firm that specializes in the development of parks. And then we have several public sessions, in addition to having a steering committee and sometimes also some focus groups. But there is a great deal of public involvement where they get to come out, throw out their ideas, and kind of, it's an ongoing process where the public is typically very engaged. Park planning does bring out people to participate, so it's actually kind of a fun process to go through.
Any other questions? We have a motion to place this under new business.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now, Ms. Dubois needs to explain to you the new
Now,
process.
Mrs. Dubois, as it relates to the financing,
That was a little,
Now we gotta pay for it.
a little too fast.
well, you said Mr. Downs was going to carry everything.
Huh?
You said Mr. Downs was going to take care of everything.
No, I said he was going to start it. Okay, this is agenda item 19 and 20 in your booklet. We need to reverse them because 20 needs to come before 19. And what needs to happen first is, in order for this financing to proceed, and the goal is to complete this transaction by December 31st, is for this evening to call for a public hearing to be held on November 17th. Because this is a 30-year financing or a lease purchase, it's required to follow under the Local Government Commission's General Statutes of 168-20. So we will actually go to the Local Government Commission with this process. It will be heard in front of them on December the 2nd.
So to start the process off, there's a required public hearing that needs to be held, and Steve Cordell, our bond counsel, will have the advertisement placed in the paper on Wednesday should the board actually act this evening and call for the public hearing on the 17th. So that's the first action that needs to take place.
We have a motion to place this on new business to have a public hearing as it relates to the installment
So
finance
moved,
contract.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, you actually need to treat this as an agenda item this evening and vote.
You would need to vote to suspend the rules to have
Thank
the
you.
timing work. And so everybody knows the Wallaces want to have some action taken this year for tax purposes, is that correct? And also so everybody knows, I think the commissioners are familiar with this, but this is essentially a no-interest loan for 30 years and purchasing the property below its value. So it's a very worthwhile project in that respect, and certainly we appreciate the generosity of the Wallaces for extending this offer.
Do we have a
I'd like
motion
to
to
move that we suspend the rules so that we can vote on this.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Now, we have a motion to approve the resolution related to the installment financing contract in the aggregate principal amount of up to $6 million and call for a required public hearing to be scheduled on November the 17th, 2008.
So moved.
So, second motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. The next phase is for November 17th, we will actually hold the public hearing for the public to come in and speak. And as Mr. Day referred to it, the tax valuation of this property is $6.9 million. The financing over 30 years is $5.7 million. The county will make a payment of $190,000 for each year, and it is a zero-interest loan as far as Cabarrus County is concerned. The attorneys have gotten together, and there's tax implications that will make that $190 split between principal and interest, but as far as the county is concerned, it is a no-interest loan. But I don't get into tax laws, but they were handling those aspects, so I did want to point that out to you. Also, after the public hearing is being held, should the board proceed from there, we need to adopt a resolution to give us the authority to sign all the financing contracts and the initial contract between us and the Wallaces. So those are the requests to be placed on the November 17th agenda.
We have a motion to place this on November the
So moved.
17th. We have a motion, we have a
Second
second.
motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Next matter we have is the presentation on JCPC Teen Court Program and adoption of related budget amendment. Mrs. Lee.
The Juvenile Crime Prevention County in Cabarrus County, if you recall during budget period that the state was withholding funds for a while, and we're glad to say that funds were restored this year for JCPC as well as put back into recurring status, annual status. Also this year they approved an expansion of funds of $500,000 across the state, of which Cabarrus County is receiving $13,614. The JCPC board reviewed request and voted to approve that or authorize that funding to go to the teen court program. This is a budget amendment to appropriate the $13,614 as well as receive a presentation from the teen court program so that the board can know what the program is doing and how they will apply the funds. So the reason this is being requested to be put on new business is just to receive that report and to approve the budget amendment for the additional grant funds.
We have a motion to place this under new business. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Mrs. Lee. Next is the Public School Building Capital Fund Transfer. Mrs. Dubois.
Yes, Cabarrus County Schools, as part of their FY09 budget process, allocated $1 million of their public school capital fund money towards technology. The Board of Education has signed off on this form on October the 1st, and it's required that the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners also authorize this so the transfer of funds can be made so they can make the purchases.
Do we have a motion to place this on new business or consent?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question, not for Mr. Wild, but no, I mean, well, maybe so. I guess, I don't hate to put it on the spot, but we got the chairman of the school board here. tonight, and of course, a former school board member from Commissioner Minot, but I had a question from a citizen this past week about, and I wasn't sure myself, that we've got, the question came about architects for school projects. And the DPI has architects on their staff, and of course, all, have I guess, a repository of school plans. And the question came to me was, why do we have to go get an outside architect? Why can't we use the DPI architects for school construction? I didn't have a clue how to answer that question.
That question was asked when I was on the Board of Education, and I think Ms. Blackwater would probably like to address it as well. Every system doesn't have the same program, and schools are designed for the programs that that system has. So while that sounds like a simple way to do it, it may or may not be the way to do it. And plus, anytime you use any architectural plan, you have architectural fees connected with it. You don't just get the plan and use it. It belongs to an architect. It's owned by that architectural firm. Those would be my answers to that question.
Sorry.
I'm sure. In addition to that, it's on. Thanks. Every time you use someone else's plan, as Commissioner Minot stated, that is their plan. You still have to purchase that plan, but you also have to do the civil engineer work for the foundation, to put it on that site. That's a new product all over again. Even if it's a, formed plan, you still have to do another plan for the site, foundation, and all that stuff.
But the architects, are there architects at DPI that provide the service?
We would still have to pay them to put it on our land site. They would not.
Okay, so it's
be
not something
prepared
that's
to
like provided service.
Even though the plans belong to the state, we still have to pay?
To my knowledge, yes. I was told yes. I asked that question when I first got on the board because that was one of the things that I had looked into, is that I knew DPI had pre-plans for different, high, middle, elementary. But in addition to that, it's probably going to be a moot point since we are doing our new construction standards. We're going to have a model for the elementary, the middle, and the high as well. So we will be cloning our schools. We will not need outside services.
Okay.
On every site.
On every site. Right.
Let me make certain, even though you clone a school, you still have to have a civil engineer to make certain that the foundation and the footprint of that clone fits properly on the school site, so that we're still needing a civil engineer or whomever to make certain everything's right.
But you get a reduced rate because you're using the same architect that created the initial plan.
Okay.
And also, it goes to the programs too. Some of our schools, particularly our elementaries, have severely handicapped students. They need a particularly specialized design for that part of the school, but every one of our elementary schools doesn't. So you're never going to have, I think, a school that's totally unchanged.
So you're not capable of having a boilerplate design for,
It's not cookie cutter.
It's
not one size
pretty
fits
close.
all.
And the reason, I have a fourth grader who was at one school and moved to another school and was very pleased that the classrooms were in the same area, the same way, and even in the library, he said the books were in the same area and same, so that familiarity, it makes it less stressful and a lot nicer.
That's a huge advantage with us doing our clones, because the kids would be familiar if they were district or if they moved, whatever
We
their
have
change.
two elementaries that we've cloned, and what gets confusing is when they mirror image it. And you go from one to the other, and everything that was on the right is now on the left. That can be confusing.
That can be a problem. But the DPI, is as good as that sounds, you still have to fit that not only to your own programs. All of our programs may be different from what they have there. You would really have to come up with a site selection that they would have that would be conducive to our schools.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Then next one is the parks carrying of concealed handguns with a permit in county parks.
Some time ago, the Board of Commissioners amended its code of ordinances to allow the carrying of concealed weapons with a proper permit on county properties, with the exception of parks. There was a request from a citizen that you received. Actually, it was a question from a citizen asking why our signs say that concealed weapons are prohibited at parks, and the answer, of course, is that that's what the ordinance calls for. And at your September meeting, you asked, I believe it was September, asked the Parks Commission to consider this issue, and they have. And Lana, do you want to address this, or I can just say that they voted against allowing concealed carry in parks. If you do have any questions about the actual discussion that the Parks Commission had, Ms. Strong can answer those.
Are there any questions? There's no act. Commissioner Minot.
I just have just one. I understand that they did not like the idea of having guns in the parks. What is the difference? I mean, the rationale that we have here, that they may be needed in state and national parks, but not in a local park. I couldn't quite figure that out.
The reason I included that was because just about every one of them mentioned that they like to camp and hike in the state and national parks, and they may be in the middle of the wilderness for 2 weeks with bears and alligators and whatever it might be.
Have you confirmed that in the national park?
Weapons are permitted not on national parks, but in national forests.
Okay,
Right.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It is in the process of being
There's a review.
looked at right now.
There is a review right now
as of last
for
year
the Park Service.
for national parks. Yes,
If I'm not mistaken, on the Appalachian Trail, you're not supposed to
correct.
carry a weapon.
Correct.
Which a through hike on that is about 4 months, 5 months, depending on your pace. But
Right.
I can assure you people do carry weapons on the Appalachian Trail.
I'm not saying they don't. But
And that was the sentiment of what the majority of every one of them, when we went around and polled each one of them, and that's what they discussed, and had been in areas of state parks where they were secluded and felt like that they would, and several of the board members had carry concealed permits and said that was their reasoning behind it.
Okay. Any other questions? This is not a matter that we have to take any action on at this point in time, but thank you very much. Number 17 is the solid waste proposed landfill expansion and tipping fee increase. Or, excuse me, going back, I've skipped one. G16 is the Sheriff's Office and Detention Center erosion control options.
This is both an aesthetics and an erosion control problem. What we're referring to is the area around the parking lot, behind the large trees. If you pull into the parking lot on the left-hand side, it borders the entire parking lot, and then is the back property line, the side property line and the back property line of the two historical homes that are over there. As you can see, the banks are eroding, and there's problems going both from the Corbin Street side on the houses property, and then also on our side in the back, where it's actually causing erosion and sediment onto our parking lots in the back. What we're trying to do here is to construct a wall, connect it with the wall that's along Corbin, and wrap it around that landscape island and continue all the way around to the back of the property behind the houses there. And we've got 4 different options that we were looking at, and the options are very similar except for in the construction of the wall. I'm sorry, your options are in your pocket of your notebook there, on the front pockets. Option 1, if you're familiar with the wall, it's supporting the rear of the parking lot. That's the gray decorative block wall that's back there, the engineered block. The first option would be to connect that to the precast, or the formed concrete wall along Corbin Avenue, wrap it around the landscaped island, and continue it all the way around behind the houses as well. That option is $60,000. Option 2 would be to do the same distance as that, but with a formed wall, which is where they would have to form it and then pour the concrete on site. And that is $235,000. That would include the decorative. If you're familiar with what the wall looks like out there now, that every 20 or 30 feet there looks like there's a column in the wall, and then there's another 20, it's a decorative. That would be to continue that process all the way around and make it both and make it uniform all the way around the property. Third option would be to create, it's a sort of a combination of cutting back the slope for maintenance purposes, and then also installing the wall as well. But then you would actually have to, and what we're talking about, if you're familiar with the driveways of the houses, there's a small strip of land there. You can, if you go up the driveway to the houses, that on the right-hand side, the bank is decaying. What this would do is create a wall and wrap that entire, and create sort of an island around that, around our property. So we would have a foundation wall in place, or a retaining wall in place to hold that bank in place, versus allowing it to continue to erode and then ultimately end up on our property as a problem. That's showing 170,000. If we do that on the back of the housing property as well, if we slope that back there, we will regain approximately 9 parking spaces back there that we lost because of having to move those curb lines back away from their property line. Combination of 1 and 3, that would be the decorative retaining wall and the pillars, but it would be made out of an engineered block wall.
Any questions for Mr. Towns?
We do have enough money in the current administrative budget to handle any of these options. Okay. So whichever you would choose.
I'm not really, I mean, I've been back there, but I'm not really familiar with what it really looks like at this point. But my question is, I don't see or hear or read any green. We're talking retaining walls. I mean, is there any place that you could sow grass and keep it from eroding?
Yes, then some of these are, if you're familiar with the banks back there, they're pretty steep banks. They're about 8 or 9 feet tall. So some of the options would be to slope to a 3-to-1 slope and then put the retaining wall to hold the remainder of it. All of those are creating a landscape island. The large trees that are along Corbin, this will wrap around the back of those trees and create an island there for landscaping as well. And then there's landscaping all through the parking lot as well.
Does this include the cost of the landscape?
I will ask. Mr. Taylor, these are your quotes.
The seating is included in the
right.
cut, 3-to-1 cut.
Yeah, that would be to cut and sow the grass on there.
So the grass
other
would be
landscaping is
on
already
the
in the
top.
budget.
It would be above the retaining wall.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
correct?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you would see green.
Yes, ma'am. And then the landscaping throughout the parking lot, it's already in the budget, and the trees will be installed in the low-level green as well. But that's already in the budget.
My combination number 4, the reference to phase 2 and phase 3, I'm not sure I understand.
Phase
exactly
2,
what that is.
we can get a map for everybody to see on at the next meeting, but phase 2 would be along the sides of the houses, and then phase 3 would be to the back.
Okay. Many of you, if not all of you, may not have been back there, but the problem is created by the degree of the slope. It's very, very steep, and in order to have reliably growing vegetation and being able to perform maintenance on it, has to be cut a lot. The owner of the property where the houses are has some concern about that because it's their property. What's the name of the organization again? Piedmont Preservation. And I don't know. I hate to spend the extra money, but the number 4 combination is longer term. It is a better option for us in terms of maintenance and aesthetics. So I think it would be important to bear in mind aesthetics in this particular case.
Any other questions?
But all four options, though, would stop the erosion?
Yes, sir.
Do we have a motion to, well, you need direction from us. Is there any further information that we need before we give directions about options 1, 2, 3, or 4? was the pleasure of the board as it relates to each one of these options? It seems like 4 is the long-term best solution.
That is the recommendation of our General Services Director, who would have to be the one responsible for maintaining these as well.
Okay.
Yeah, this place also sounds like the safest too for our employees, we're not working on it, maintain it.
Yeah, I'd rather not have people on a bank
Yeah.
working if possible. Now, you don't have to decide which option tonight, right? It's just to place it on the agenda for the 17th.
Is it possible just to get somebody to just draw a little sketch of this so that if we wanted to go take a look at this ourselves?
Yes, ma'am. And we can give you.
We can email
Are
pictures
all
to
of-
you right away.
Right.
And we already have, I think, some pictures.
Yes.
Okay. And are all of these both seen from Corbin and also from behind?
They are not all seen from Corbin. If we create the island, you will see that at the driveway of the two older homes. Then the only other part that you would see from Corbin is where we would connect into the existing wall that's there and wrap around the green space there at the driveway. Then the remainder of it would be back in the parking area.
When you say tree removal, is that one tree, numerous trees, large trees?
There,
little
one of,
trees?
right in the driveway to the left, that large tree that's right there, it's gotta go, and possibly the next one, I think the next one is dying. And we've had our, Ms. Goforth from the Cooperative Extension look at that, and he's evaluated it, so. But the rest of the 3 or 4 other large trees will still remain there.
We'll send out some additional information.
Right.
Mr. Billiford will get that out very quickly.
I move we put this under new business then.
We have a motion, we have a second. We have a motion and a second to place this under new business. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. The proposed landfill expansion and tipping fee increase.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners, I come before you today to discuss the option of doing a landfill expansion on an existing landfill on Irish Potato Road. The current landfill is projected to reach capacity June or July of 2010. The expansion that we've worked with our consultants with would allow that landfill to continue operation through 2014. What you have in your packet today is a model that's been generated through Shelley Ferris from our finance department, as well as Kemp Dresser and McKee, who is our consulting firm. That model explains a cost analysis on how we could operate through that 2014 date. This would require a tip fee increase of $3 per ton through the rest of this fiscal year, with subsequent increases 2011 by $1 and 2013 by $1, which would total during this duration $33 a ton. Our closest competitor at this time is already at $36 a ton, so we would be well under their rate, even if we increased the total amount to $33 in this current fiscal year.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Payne?
If I'm reading this correctly, the one that is being closed was 6.5 acre, no, 12 acres?
We currently have a landfill that we used starting in 1998 when we closed our MSW landfill due to state regulations. We began piggybacking C&D, or construction demolition debris, on top of that in January of '98 to June of '07. We're closing that out now, and we're operating a 6.5 acre site currently. Once that site's the one that's projected to close 2010, June, July 2010.
Okay, according to this in paragraph 1, the area that is being closed was 12 acres. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
And then in number 2, we added 6.5 acres.
Correct.
Now, what is the proposed expansion? Is that the 6.5 acres? Or is
There
that
would be an
additional?
There would be an additional 6.5 acres.
Okay.
The
right.
paragraph 2 is what we're operating in now.
Okay, but why, and it says it's gonna cost, for the additional 6.5 acres, it's gonna cost $1 million, no, wait a minute, where am I? In number 3, it says the new expansion will cost $1.7 million. Is that for the 6.5 acres?
Yes, ma'am.
It's not for the land, it's for the construction of the landfill.
Okay, that's
There's a
fine.
liner that's required.
That's
yeah.
fine, okay, $1.7 million. What caused it to jump to twice the cost?
For the expansion, there was new state regulations in Senate Bill 1492 that governs all landfills, including C&D landfills. And because of the expansion of this landfill, it's gonna create the issue to put in a lining system in it to meet state regulations to do so.
So we're gonna pay 1.875 to close it, and then 1.7 for the expansion.
Yes.
Am I reading this
Yes, ma'am.
correctly?
It's gonna cost 1.875 to close out 12 acres.
Okay,
That-
and then
that's already been
1.7 to add 6.5.
Additional 6.5, yes, ma'am.
Wow.
There is a very regulated process for closure, and then we also even have to maintain money on hand to pay for the post-closure costs as well. So it's a very regulated business, and one that's somewhat expensive as well, especially now with the liner requirement.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, Rick, on the Legislative Goals Committee for the association this year, and there was a couple of things brought up at our meeting we had last Friday. One of them was I guess there's a provision being kicked around about C&D landfills that would, I guess if you require separation of materials or require that if it's not brought in by a commercial disposal company, that you could not put it in the C&D landfill, or have you heard anything about that, or
No,
any move to further restrict who could use a C&D landfill? Or?
In our permit, it allows us to accept any kind of construction demolition waste, whether it be residential or commercial. The only thing we do not accept is any liquids or hazardous material. But we don't have to source separate anything based on our permit.
Okay. Because the other one was some sort of vision with yard waste. That there was some movement to try to force uncovered yard waste would have to be, the water runoff from that would have to go into wastewater treatment, or?
Okay, we cannot put yard waste in our construction demolition
Right, okay.
facility, and we have an area set up for that. But we're under the 6,000 cubic yards a quarter.
Okay.
So we're under that permitting requirement.
But yes, almost every year those issues
Okay.
Resurface.
Okay.
Is it economical with technology of day to just grind up the bricks and all that and reuse them in some force? I don't even know if you can reuse bricks, but the concrete or anything like that?
Yes, but typically somebody's doing that prior to bringing it to us because it's an inert debris. So a lot of these companies, D.H. Griffin and some of their demolition companies, are already doing that prior to bringing it to us. They're bringing us the sheetrock, the shingles, the wood, that type of debris. So typically we don't get the concrete, the brick and that kind of thing, because they can use that back for filler or road surfaces and things like that. So we generally don't get a lot of that. So I don't think economically we should be, there's a lot of upfront capital cost to get that equipment, and we're not generating that type of material.
And in fact, when Pilatex was demolished, Griffin did grind the brick and sell it and use it elsewhere. I think we used some of it too, didn't we?
Yeah, we got some to build some roads with, yeah, but generally speaking, we don't get a lot of that debris in our loads.
Okay. We have a motion to place this on the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a second.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. I think that is all that we have for tonight.
we have, we need to recess this meeting until November 13th so we can have our legislative goals parking lot meeting. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
Parking lot meetings, when?
It is on November 13th.
Oh, yeah, at 12 noon.
And also, we have the consent items that are under F. Do we have a motion to place those on the agenda as is?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now,
Mr. Chairman, well, never mind. We'll
okay.
talk about it on 13th.
Okay. We have November the 13th. We have a motion to recess this till noon on November the 13th to meet in the multipurpose room. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you.